Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University School of Education, SOE. Certificate in Guidance, CIG, English. NES 103 Guiding Children's Learning. Block-1 Acquisition and Process of Learning. Unit-4 Enhancing Learning Skills. 4.1 Introduction. It is not uncommon to find some children who do not enjoy studies. They may have a lot of potential for learning but are not inspired to learn as they have no interest in it. Learning in the narrow sense may mean only passing examinations, while in a wider perspective it would generate curiosity and a desire for knowledge in the learner. The responsibility of teachers and parents of elementary school children is hence to promote and strengthen this kind of learning and help children develop skills for achieving that purpose. In this unit, with the help of some cases, we have discussed ways to enhance learning. 4.2 Objectives. After going through this unit, you should be able to establish the relationship between academic performance and study habits. Identify the elements conducive to good study habits. Recognize which of the elements of study habits of a given learner need to be modified. Motivate the learner to develop better learning skills. Create an environment in the class home in which the child will be helped to develop good study habits. Encourage in the child the habits of observation, interpretation and verification of information, MD. Help the child in assessing his/her study habits and to make appropriate modifications. 4.3 Why do children fail to perform? Let us consider some cases. Asha's performance has deteriorated. She has many interests but is confused on how she can cope with her studies and other activities. Her parents are anxious. Mohan is not achieving well in academics. His parents insist that he is at his books most of the evening. Reena comes to class without her study materials. Sometimes her pencil is missing or her books are not in her bag. Seema, on the other hand, is a consistent worker, organized with her material and generally up to date in her work. She enjoys reading and learning and is enthusiastic about activities and play. Except Seema, all others are not doing well at school due to different reasons. We can help their basic skills of organizing themselves for studies, time management, skills of reading, memorizing and writing, and observation and experimentation. 4.3.1 Attitude towards studies. 1. Studying essentially requires a positive attitude towards school and learning. As we have already mentioned, there are some students who fail to get interested in school, and some students who spend much time trying to avoid tasks related to studies. There could be many reasons for this. It's possible that education is not valued in the household, the child's environment is not stimulating enough, he is overworked at home, is ill-fatigued, is unable to understand lessons in class, is scared, has personal problems with the teacher or has a poor self-concept. Rahul is a 10-year-old who does not like school. He complains of his teachers being boring and unfair. He fails to enjoy and reading. He makes excuses when asked to study. He complains, spends time worrying and hates to be told to study. Parents are away at work when he returns from school. Rahul is expected to cope with school work on his own. The home environment is not the one where studies are considered important. At school, he gets scolded and punished for a lack of interest. He needs to develop liking for study and also a positive attitude. He needs to be explained that he has control over the situation and that he can modify his study habits in a number of ways that will be suitable as well as beneficial to him. Studying will cease to be burdensome if he sees enjoyment in reading and learning. A positive and Receptive attitude may be developed with some parental support. If the child is encouraged to try out ways in which he can learn, he may gradually develop a positive attitude which would take the sting out of learning. One of the ways in which this attitude can be fostered is by encouraging the reading habit, about which we will speak in later section. Learning cannot take place if an individual does not see the need for it and has no desire to do it. This aspect needs to be tackled right at the beginning. This may require a patient understanding of the reasons why a student does not have a positive attitude to learning. This process may involve identifying people who can help in the process of developing a desirable attitude in the child, e.g., parents. 2. Making a list of activities the child likes doing and using these to generate curiosity in him. To read, e.g., a child may be interested in motor cars. He may be given books on motor cars to read. He can then be asked to answer questions on various details. He can prepare a game on learning through words in class for the same topic. He may be asked to narrate. Such exercises, when tried with children, help in generating a positive attitude towards learning, and gradually he may develop an interest in his class work also. 4.4 Time management. Apart from having a positive attitude towards learning, another aspect that has a big influence is how we manage our time. Studying, you would agree, at times demands focused attention and exclusion or postponing of other interesting activities due to time limits. Enhancing learning skills. Elve spoke about Mohan, who is a low achiever. His parents insist that he is at his books for most of the evening. His work is unsatisfactory. Obviously, Mohan's performance is not in accordance with the time he puts in. Like any other child, Mohan also needs play and entertainment but lacks the skill to manage his time. His elders are unable to see any reason for his poor performance. They feel that the length of time for which Mohan studies is quite sufficient for him to be good at his studies. However, Mohan, despite the time put in, is unable to finish his work. His poor performance has affected his motivation and interest and his attitude towards studies. How do you think Mohan can be helped to prevent him from slipping into absolute inefficiency? You may perhaps like to ask Mohan to describe an activity in which he had been successful. It may not necessarily be related to study. It could be play-related, activity-related, or just related to some task accomplished in the home. Mohan tells you that he likes giving a bath to his dog and is entrusted with this task as he can do it well. Ask him to make a note of the steps he went through to reach a current ability. Exactly, how did he get to be good in that task? You could help him apply to studying. He describes to you the exact steps or subtasks he does before the actual task. You notice that he has learned to do certain tasks before he actually begins bathing the dog. He gets the bucket of water, soap, mug and a towel ready. This preparation he has learned to do to save time and energy on the actual task. He recalls that on the first occasion, before getting all the things ready and he started giving bath to his dog, when he went to fetch the soap, the dog disappeared. He searched for it, then repeated the process. He wasted both time and energy. He learned that certain steps will save time and energy. Liking an example from this experience, Mohan can be guided to improve his study efficiency. Ask him to find out why his friend Rahul gets a B grade and completes his studies in half an hour, while Mohan also gets a grade in the same task on which he has spent 3 hours. Rahul probably wastes little time on the task since he has his materials ready and has planned his work. Making a time chart is a skill that we shall attempt to develop in this section. As We have seen one of the important attributes of a good learner is the ability to make good use of time. Mohan prepared his material before giving his dog a bath and he could complete his task well in less time. Organization of subtasks facilitates work. A child, however, is confronted with a number of tasks and may need to examine his/her priorities to be able to do it appropriately, schedule his/her time for optimal achievement. Time management is needed not only with regards to all the tasks to be performed but also for specific tasks, e.g. if Mohan has to learn 3 lessons of history, he must organize his time in such a way that he is able to devote enough time for all. A time schedule, however, must not in any case be a hard taskmaster. Mohan's parents presumed that since Mohan was at his books most of the time, he was necessarily studying. This may not be true. 4.4.1 Making a time chart. The first step in learning to manage time more efficiently is to make a time chart, which assesses the current use and waste of time. It is important to distinguish between fixed, something that is done every day at the same time, and flexible, something that can be done at any time of the day, activities in terms of the amount of time as well as the time of the day at which they have to be taken care of. List some activities which may be called fixed activities for the child and some flexible activities. Did you include school timings, personal hygiene chores for the fixed and play, recreation, the flexible? Now, let us get into the lesson. Make a list of the activities a child would normally do. You could ask some of your students to do the same. Now, arrange these flexible activities, ranking them according to priority for that student. Broadly allocate time for studies, play, recreation, etc. Study time must further be divided into the study of various school subjects. Some subjects need more time than others. Also alternate between activities that require intensive attention and sitting in one place with those that allow movements and relaxation. There is another variation: some children can learn faster and better than others. Rohit may be able to learn the same lesson in half an hour while Mohit may take time for warming up. Besides completing schoolwork, some time should be allocated for pursuing hobbies, extracurricular activities and reading of storybooks. Write the points you feel need changes in Mohit's study schedule. Now, let us look into the time schedule. Is there any wasted time? Is there enough time to complete studying? Does the schedule reflect Mohit's priorities? Does the schedule suggest too many activities at once? 4.4 to the typical prime time. We all are probably aware that there are times of maximum alertness which may vary from person to person. Learning may be easy for Seema in the evening, and for Rohit, he may best lean one in the morning. It would then be advisable that Seema tackles the most difficult learning task in the evening while Rohit may do the same task in the morning. This may suggest to Rohit that he cannot learn in the evening. This is not true. No time schedule should be treated as shackles to one's needs. Most of these are conditioned habits and not genetic. It should be also pointed out that these habits get formed due to environment, e.g., silence, less disturbance in the home in morning or evening, and so on. 4.4.3 Breaks, rest intervals are valuable. Here the main question is, what is a break or rest interval? It is nothing but time. Period, S, for breaking the monotony. It could be a rest or relaxation time or change of work, just getting up for a little stroll or any other activities a child feels as play. Working effective Y involves the breaks without feeling guilty and rewards for productive work. List out activities which you can give during a break, after a span of learning, which children would enjoy. Do you think children will look forward to a learning session after such a break? Well, a break may not always be possible in the school or at home. Can a learning session itself be made exciting? Let us see. What are the different ways you may suggest to children to learn subjects such as history, geography, science, English? Each subject may require a different approach. When it is difficult to concentrate, it may be best to put it off for a while. In school, a football match is on, or in the neighborhood, a music program is going on. Seema feels that she would either see the match or hear the music for a while before sitting down to her work. It should be generally acceptable if it is not a habit to search for such exciting alternatives. Indeed, the key to effective time management is organization, i.e., planning and arranging the coherent whole. As we have seen, Kamla comes to school either without her books or pencil, paper, etc. If we peep through her window at home, we see a disorganized and untidy room. Let us now consider what Seema's room is like. What are the possible differences you could find in Seema's and Kamla's rooms? Kamla, Seema. 1. The study is disorganized. 1. The study table is organized. 2. Books are scattered all around. 2. Books are in order. 4.5 Skills of reading. Reading is perhaps the most vital single activity associated with learning. While sometimes we may read primarily for pleasure, and at other times, primarily for learning, there is one real contradiction in their two connotations. Learning can and should be fun. In the context of reading skills as a study skill, we would be helped if we could focus our attention on the reading style. This reading style will differ depending on the purpose for which we are reading. When Mona reads a mystery book, her purpose could be to get a gist of the story time. However, when her teacher asks her to read a chapter from a geography book on the Earth and its movements, she may pay more attention to certain critical details. In adult life, we ultimately need the skill of being able to pick up and understand important details. This may involve developing the skill of reading not necessarily the words or even individual sentences, but whole paragraphs or even more. There may of course be certain kinds of situations in adult life where we do pay attention to most details in a given reading, not necessarily the words or even individual sentences, but whole paragraphs or even more. In the primary school, however, children are usually encouraged to pay attention to every word because each sentence brings new information that has to be processed and organized. Even in childhood, however, there are occasions when a child may speed read without reading every single part, e.g., comic books where there is a supplementary pictorial materials. What we need to remember is that study is always purposive. What does an explorer do before going as on expedition? He obviously gets a general idea of what the journey is most likely to be before he actually experiences the journey. Try THLS exercise in your class. Give your students to read that chapter and ask questions. I011 it. Ask them the first question after about 5 minutes. What is this chapter about? You are likely to find only a few students who have skimmed through the chapter for general content to be able to answer your question. After 20 minutes, ask them detailed questions on the passage. Discuss with them the method they followed. Reading is most effective when you know what you are looking for. When you don't know this, your mind has no indication as to how to organize the information it receives. You will not know which bits are important and which can safely be left out. There is nothing to fix your attention. Attention may be drawn to different aspects of the material depending on the purpose, e.g., if the purpose of reading a paragraph is to find out how many sentences there are in it or to find out how many Words in the paragraph begin with the alphabet? It would be helpful while reading to pay attention only to these details. What we perceive is bound to be selective. However, frequently we do not provide the focus of reading before we actually start studying that material. Here is a passage that we can use as an example. Meera and her brother lived in a village beyond the hillock. Meera's father was a cobbler who went to nearby bus stop where he would sit by the roadside and mend shoes and slippers and earn a meager livelihood. Meera looked after her little brother and took him to school with her. She also had to help her mother in the household chores. Now, look at the questions that follow. What did Meera's father do for a living? Where did he go every day? Where does Meera take her brother? You may perhaps have to look into the passage for answer. If you had known the questions before reading the passage, answering would be easier. These questions demand simple comprehension. Now, if on the other hand, we wish to develop skills of seeing relationships, we could ask a different set of questions such as, who were the characters in the passage? Are the characters related to each other? What was the sequence of events? Yet another purpose of such an exercise may be to encourage imagination in the child. In that case, the kind of questions that would be asked would be of the following type. Suppose Meera's father worked at the school instead of the bus stop, then what kind of customers would he have had? Thus, depending on the purpose for which the teacher would like the child to read, she could ask any of these different types of questions. Further, if these questions were made available to the children before the reading of the passage, their attention could be focused on relevant points.
4.5.1 General to Detailed. If you skim through a chapter before reading it in detail, you will gain some idea of what the chapter contains, which will make you answer particular questions at every stage of your learning, and it is an important part of the process. An effective way of reading to understand is to 1. Skim the passage for general content, 2. Read the question, and 3. Read the chapter in detail, looking for all the information that relates to the questions as you read. 4.5.2 Skimming is important. Comprehension of the material being read improves when the reader gets a synoptic view of the text. The intricate details can be filled in the cognitive map or outline. A reader prepares for himself/herself through skimming. It is like taking a bird's eye view of the material to be read. Reading of subheadings, words in bold letters, seeing the figures helps in getting a general view. When a reader goes into the details at the outset, he may not be able to recognize the details as part of a total whole. 4.5.3 Encouraging reading. Encouraging children to read from as many sources as possible would be a useful habit for teachers to encourage. Interesting, informative, and challenging material can be found in the textbooks, magazines, encyclopedias, and a variety of other books. How can reading habits be encouraged? This is what some teachers have done. 1. Asking different children on different days to read and share what they have read with the class. 1 or 2 children a day for a few minutes each. 2. Giving a hint about what a book is all about and thus arousing their curiosity. 3. Encouraging the use of library. At the elementary school level, it may be difficult for children to go and search in a big library and find the books they are looking for. Teachers can help by selecting several books, say 20 to 22, that have information on the topic or project that the class is working on. These can be kept readily available in a box in the classroom itself. Another aspect of using the books is to be able to find specific information in it from amongst all the other things it may talk about. Adults can show children how to use the content page and sometimes even the subject index page to locate what they are searching for. A few books selected on varied topics attractively and prominently displayed around the class is yet another way of encouraging children to read. The choice of books in I depend on current interests of the children as well as topics that are studied. The books can be changed after couple of weeks. When you plan an assignment on a topic in science next time, could you think of suggesting to children some books which they can look up? Some children may try doing the assignment from a particular source, others from yet another source. The use of magazines, pictures, material from encyclopedias could be encouraged. When children use different sources to collect information, they may arrive at various methods of presentation. They also learn the use of new terms and see relevant pictures. Their learning would then become enriched and interesting. 4.5.4 Reading is an active process. Reading is a process which requires readers' active participation. It involves the reader's previous knowledge and thought processes. Reading involves the use of words, vocabulary, comprehending what the material is all about, pace at which such comprehension is possible. As discussed earlier, the process of reading involves skimming, looking for answers or specific details, interpreting or comprehending the meaning and satisfying the purpose for which the process was pursued. This process involves understanding of the written material which must necessarily precede memorizing. If it is required, comprehension of any materia varies with the reader's experiences, level of education, and their sociocultural background. These elements to a great degree are influenced by his or her vocabulary. Rich vocabulary enhances the pace at which a reader can read and makes comprehension easier. At the elementary level, the teacher can play a vital role in helping this to grow. 4.5.5 Developing vocabulary. One of the major problems children face in reading is, as mentioned earlier, the weakness in vocabulary cannot only be enriched by learning the meanings of the difficult words selected randomly. It is more important to understand the meaning of new words in the context of their usage. If a child learns by sensing the meaning of the word in the context where it has been used, it will improve his/her comprehension. It will also help her to use the word to describe his/her own experiences. 4.5.6 Reading should encourage observation and experimentation. We have seen that reading is a process where the reader aims at comprehending what the writer says. In the olden times when books were few, people relied more on their own power of observation and experimentation. While the skills of reading are valuable in the present day, it would also be worthwhile to encourage children in developing the skills of observation and experimentation. In this section, we have spoken about various methods in which teaching and learning can be fun. In this context, we could add that the elementary school children may be encouraged to learn through observation of their environment. Example, a visit to a zoo which may not only be a joyful experience but may teach the child a lot about animals through observation. Similarly, a visit to a park, a forest, an orchard may help the children to learn about flowers, trees and fruits. At home too, the child may experiment and observe. When a child sees a plant grow from a seed, it is a more valuable experience than mere reading. Reading must not inhibit such skills but should supplement and in a way arouse curiosity in the reader. This curiosity would encourage experimentation and observation, which are basic methods of learning. 4.6 Memorizing. This is another important learning skill. This itself involves a lot of organization. There are many factors involved in deciding how well a task will be memorized. The intensity of a stimulus, its distinctness, frequency and recency all affect retention and recall. The amount of attention, interest, motivation to remember, fatigue, understanding of the subject are other important factors affecting memory. Research has indicated that meaningful material is better retained than memory. Research has indicated that meaningful material is better retained than meaningless one, poems better than nonsense, syllables and stories better than figures in statistics. More effort also leads to better retention, as does a pleasant emotion associated with the task. It is very interesting to see how children remember stories, phone numbers, songs, TV serials, but fail to remember their lessons. Let us take the example of Vikas, who is a cricket fan. He likes the game and seems to recall when Sachin Tendulkar made a century and how Yuvraj Singh was bowled out. Yet, the scene in class is somewhat different. Vikas cannot remember facts from his history lessons. What skills and techniques do you think he uses to remember cricket-related facts and figures? Which quality do you think is important for Vikas to develop to be able to memorize his lessons? Can you use the skills he uses to recall facts of the game to remember facts of history? The intention to remember can do wonders with memory. We remember what we want to remember. The material intended for recall is generally carefully stored in memory, and this facilitates its retrieval when needed. The desire to store facts hence makes understanding, organizing and grouping of facts easier. One who desires to learn follows the fundamental process of reading, thinking, integrating. This process necessarily suggests that memory devices are best structured by the learner. Example, dates may be best remembered in chronological order. Some memories are best helped by visual imagery, some by analogy, some by theories and the use of senses. Use this figure to see when you have used this trick to remember someone by associating one with another. 1af The most common mistakes that students make is to try to memorize material that is disorganized. Organization must be filled neatly to be asked for when needed. Let us take an example. Sportsmen are specialists of different games. How would you memorize the names of large number of sportsmen? You may classify them according to the different games they play, such as basketball, badminton, tennis, football, and the like. A. You can ask students to classify flowers according to their color or according to place where they have seen them, etc. Animals according to their family type, size, habits, etc. Classmates according to height, etc. They can then try to recall names by thinking of the category. We can use this to help us recall. Here is a list of words. First, try to memorize the list in the given order. Then, organize the words into groups you may find convenient. Try memorizing now: peanut, apple, orange, banana, red, walnut, green, blue, grapes, cashew, yellow, pineapple. Try classifying the items in the list to facilitate learning. Which list of words was easier to remember? When we organize material into meaningful units, it's always easier to remember. We also learn faster what we experience through more than one sense organ. Example, when a poem is recited aloud, we are using our voice, eyes, and ears. It is common knowledge that a language is best learnt by staying in a place where it is spoken and used. Hearing the words spoken and use them facilitate learning. Try this exercise in your class. Give to a group of students a verse from a poem to be learnt silently, and after 10 minutes ask them to recite it. Ask the same group to learn another verse by reciting aloud from their books. After 10 minutes, ask them to recite it. Which verse was learnt better? Writing and reciting use different senses to assist memory. Perhaps the slowest and least efficient way is merely to read it over and over again. Memorizing, say, of a passage may be facilitated by the use of certain techniques, which are as follow. Repeated recitation helps enhance learning than silent reading. 2. Whole verses part learning. If the task to be learnt is long, then it's more effective to divide it into parts and learn followed by a revision as a whole. 3. Spaced and unspaced learning. Learning at one sitting, though useful for emergency, is not as effective as spaced learning. 4. Cramming. Logical memory, material understood and memorized in meaningful units is always retained longer than that which is learnt through rote. 5. Organization of knowledge, information organized into related parts and subparts, is retained longer. 6. Poeming associations. Along with these techniques, what is equally important is a motivation to learn and a relaxed and rested mind. Mark the methods which you feel are more effective as compared with others. 1. Reading it at spaced intervals. 2. Keeping the write-up under the pillow. 3. Reading it 100 times, but without comprehension. 4. Reading it aloud. 5. Reading it with comprehension. 6. Use of different senses, example, writing and reading. 7. Learning spellings of the words. 8. Associate the meaning of that passage with some other passage a story one has previously learnt. 4.7 Recall. Recall is essential for learning. Learning, as we have seen, follows 3 essential steps: understanding, memorizing by organizing material, and recalling or retrieving material when required. There are some people who find this process easy. After understanding the material on they read, they use their skills of organizing and storing material in their mind, which makes it convenient for them to recall it. This process is very often easy when the learner finds the material purposeful or interesting. The same material may not be easy to store and recall by all persons. However, the skill to learn and recall may be developed in children at an early stage, which would help them to deal with material of different types, thereby facilitating their use through memorizing and recalling. Material once learnt, however, tends to be forgotten. Review of material learnt is vital for effective recall. Recall must follow this sequence: reading a select portion to be learnt for approximately 15 minutes, rest for a short while, for a minute or two, checking of the text to see if any points have been missed out and making a note of them, recall next morning, that is at spaced intervals, and recall after a longer time. 4.8 Writing skills. In the school system, what a child learns or an information he/she has processed is measured by what the child writes. This writing comes through processing of learnt materials in the form of notes, diagrams, points, etc. What is done in the classroom teaching in the form of notes is often the crucial format of the material learnt. At the elementary level, this helps the child to focus his mind on the important points. In other words, the matter is organized to facilitate recall. While this is a useful method, it would be advisable to guide and help children to grasp the main content of a material by following the so-called precise concise summary method. After a passage is read, the children may express in their own words what they have read. At times, it may be only a sentence, but it ensures that the child is learning to comprehend. If you read a story to your class, what are the type of questions which would help you to know that the child has comprehended that story? A very common question is, what do you learn from this story? There can be activities such as asking the children to write in 3 or 4 sentences the gist of the story. For some children perhaps, a drawing could be more expressive. You have in most likelihood asked children to write short paragraphs, essays, on topics which a child sees in his/her environment. Such an activity helps in assessing the way a child processing information and to what extent his/her writing skill is developed. In terms of the writing skills, what would you look for in the child's work to be certain that their writing skills are well directed? The elements of writing for a normal child constitute of vocabulary, correct usage of words, sentence structure, logical presentation and spelling. Of course, neatness and formation of letters is desirable for a good presentation. 4.8.1 Vocabulary. When we speak of developing reading habit, we mentioned the value of recognizing and using new words. We also speak about using words in this context. What would you consider more valuable in terms of vocabulary use of long words or choosing the right word? Can you think of a classroom activity which can help children to use new words appropriately? There is a tendency in younger learners to use new big words without really checking on their appropriateness. Let us see these sentences. 4.1. It was a large, very shortly stalked, solitary flower. 3. It was a large single flower with a short stalk. Which sentence do you think uses words correctly? Very often, children experiment the use of new words they pick up. The usage may not be absolutely correct, but they can be guided into using the words correctly gradually instead of hampering their selection. 4.8.2 Sentence structure. Writing skill necessarily includes the use of appropriate structures of sentences. The child needs learn to structure his/her thoughts to be correctly understood. Too long or too short sentences may tend to lose their meaning and may have grammatical errors. This essentially comes from good practice. Children, however, may be encouraged to read stories to help them appreciate good language usage. Find out a few magazines, books which would be of use to children in developing good language and expression skills. 4.8.3 Logical presentation of facts. The art of good writing is not only in rich vocabulary, structured sentences but also in the logical presentation of facts. When we look at the simple process of answer a question, breaking up of the question into its component parts and then answering each part in the required sequence would ensure a logical answer. This is only possible when learning has followed the process of understanding and organization of material in the mind. Hence, any such writing necessarily provides for assessment, both by the child and by the teacher. Such assessment provides for a feedback to the learner to work on improving on the skills which ensure effective learning. 4.8.4 Spellings. Much emphasis is laid on spellings at the elementary school stage, specifically with the PBR pose that words are the basic tool for functioning in any language. Any handicap in language learning at usage may partially be because of poor spelling. It is, however, advisable that undue emphasis on this element may hamper the growth of logic of thought processes. Learning of spellings, however, can be fun for an elementary school child. Let us see how Arun learned spellings. Arun was weak in the use of E and I together. He would get confused when asked to spell words like believe, away, relief, etc. His teacher used a little phrase which he learnt. I before E except after C. Whenever there is doubt, he would recite this. Could you identify common spelling errors in children and spell out the rule which they might remember? 4.9 Studying for examinations. So far in this unit, we have attempted to look at learning and study skills in a broad perspective, learning for life related to knowledge for mastery of skills, rather than for a narrow objective of just getting through examinations with flying colors. It is important that a child be encouraged from the elementary stages to develop capabilities of analysis, understanding and decision-making, which will be needed in almost any kind of work in adult life. The current examination system sometimes relies more on memorization and lays little emphasis in such integrative capabilities, thereby putting the student on crossroads where his learning skills are limited as compared to the competencies required. On the other hand, a child who has developed basic study skills to enhance his learning thought processes will be able to do complicated work and cope with examinations as well. These skills include organization, time management, and effective memorizing techniques. In any case, in the elementary school years, examinations should not be once a year affair, but competencies of children should be assessed at various times of the year so that competencies other than memorization also can be encouraged to develop. However, sometimes one may not be in control of the situation. One may be in a school that goes by the routine memory-based examination system. As an individual teacher, one can still emphasize the long, broader learning skills on a year-round basis while guiding the children how to plan and study in an organized manner so as to effectively answer questions even in a traditional examination system. 4.10 Let us sum up. We have seen in this unit that it is possible to enhance children's understanding at school by developing effective study habits. It is a matter of great concern for the school teacher to find children incapable of coping with school demands and achieving academic success, for identifying weaknesses and planning strategies and to overcome them. The teachers' and parents' participation is required. Effectiveness in the world of work to a large extent depends 011 work habits, which would be initiated through effective study habits learnt at school. Thank you for listening. We will be back with the next chapter.